Just like laying down a good bottle of wine is an investment in the future, there are certain investments that age like a fine wine. And knowing what these investments are is key to Julius Baer's investment philosophy. So we've come to the Swiss Alps, to this beautiful wine cellar, to speak to Group Chief Investment Officer Yves Bonzon, who not only happens to know the key trends for the next decade in his secular outlook, but he also happens to be a bit of a wine aficionado as well. Yves, it's good to have you here in this unusual setting for us.
Thanks for having me, Ada.
So where does this passion for wine come from?
Well, passion might be a bit of a stretch, but it's true that I'm a wine amateur. I think, I have a saying, life's too short for average food, and good food comes with good wine, with good friends. It's part of the tradition of socializing together. And I think these are memorable moments that we can share around a glass of wine.
And I love this metaphor about putting wine down for the longer term, but also it's the same with your investments. Why should investors think long term when it comes to their investments?
Well, they should think long term, and the most difficult part is building the portfolio. And then some investment you need to keep long term. Some investment you need to pull the plug on and move on, and change course. It's a bit like a wine cellar. Some bottles you keep for the long haul, other you want to drink faster. Some you open you don't like and you don't drink. It's a bit the same in a portfolio.
Okay, so we've come to this wine bar, not just because it's a fabulous location, but it's really because you and your team have really tried to unplug from the day-to-day, take some time out of the office to look at the key trends that will affect our investments in the longer term. What are some of your key takeaways?
Look, we are in a situation after the two great shocks of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, where markets have normalized and to a large extent economies have normalized. People are still very worried about potentially a recession. This is a moderate concern of ours still by now. Inflation has taken time to come back to a targeted level, but it's now at or close to central bank targets. That was our assumption from the beginning, that it would prove to be temporary. Then you can debate how long is temporary, but eventually it proved to be a temporary phenomena so far. So now the question is where are we going from here in a situation where, unlike a year ago, last time we convened together to discuss secular trends, markets have moved quite a bit. Risk premia have compressed. It used to be a pretty straightforward risk on call 12 months ago. It's a bit more nuanced today.
And this is what you've been discussing, and this is what the secular outlook really kind of focuses on in more detail.
Absolutely.
So what happens what should investors look for when it comes to the challenges? Nobody likes a corked bottle. What should they look for when it comes to some of the negatives out there that they should avoid?
Look, an investment process needs to have a clearly defined objective. You need to understand the range of potential outcome, because it's very natural, even healthy, that a portfolio has some volatility of outcome. You are compensated for taking risk over time, and therefore risk involves mark-to-market volatility in particular. So I think in a bit like when you choose a wine and you taste it, you want to have a deep thought about what is it that you're looking at. For instance, we had a review on private debt. It's the asset class across the capital market spectrum that has enjoyed strongest growth in the last 8 or 10 years. You want to understand that asset class that is becoming increasingly mainstream better, and you want to avoid beginner's mistakes when you allocate capital to such new risk premia and opportunities.
Now, just like even a fine bottle of wine, you can't buy and hold forever. Sometimes you have to pop the cork, sometimes you have to drink the wine. How do investors recognize that point with their investments?
It's the most difficult. It's the most difficult because, and it depends on the asset class. The return profiles are different, sometimes asymmetric, sometimes symmetric in the equity world. So for instance, in public equities, the best asset class and the safest, in my opinion, long term, the fundamental basic rule is to stick to your winners and get rid of your losers. And to be honest, the most difficult part is the exit. When do you exit a successful equity investment? That's a very tricky one. It's always a combination of valuation and the associated risk that comes with rich valuation, but also the fundamentals of the business you're invested into. So it's a difficult one. It's like a wine, you know. You don't know what you find until you've taken the cork out, right? And that's a little bit the same. Exiting successful position is trickier than one would think.
And once you've popped the cork, you can't put the wine back. So
look, in some instances, if you think you exited an investment and wrongly so, you can re-enter, you know. When the wine is drunk, the wine is drunk. But you can move on to another bottle eventually.
And what do you do at home? Do you drink the wine? Do you hold the wine?
I have a limited stock and I turn it. Why? Because there are some classics that you have all the time and that you age. But then you want to try different things, you know. My favorite is Châteauneuf-du-Pape White. But sometimes you have a period where you go into Alsace white wines, you know, and you discover new things. That's the exciting part about wine.
Just like your investments then.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I chose a Bordeaux. I hope you like it. Shall we try?
Cheers. Thank you, Anna.